All right, everyone, welcome to another session. We'll talk of what is business as usual. I will set business as usual refers to the regular operations and processes that an organization maintains to ensure its system and data remain secure, right? Of course, you got to stay in business. And that's why we start talking about how they call availability, right? Was the goal to ensure that security controls are implemented and also being compliant with PCI DSS that will facilitate, like functionality, make sure that the business continues to function. And in the conjunction to that, they also stay in compliance with PCI DSS. But why is this crucial? Because first, PCI DSS compliance is not a one-time event. And remember, I've told you, that's one of the reasons or areas where we keep having jobs because of this. It must be maintained and monitored regularly. Business as usual processes help ensure that security control continues to be effective and that changes or failures are addressed promptly. And that's where each time you start hearing risk management, managing risks, continuous monitoring, this is exactly what we are saying. And it doesn't matter again which framework you've worked with or organization you've worked with, it's pretty much the same. So key best practices for PCI DSS in that. First, it says that appoint a dedicated team or individual to oversee PCI DSS compliance as part of organization ongoing operations. And that's why you all are taking this training, because if you have to work with the organization, fair enough, you're going to be working with different stakeholders, right? And the cost of doing that, it may even it just mean like leading the PCI DSS itself, collecting artifacts, knowing what kind of document you can ask, making sure that you all definitely update your security policy, have all the necessary requirements. So in a nutshell, you are also supporting this. Say, for example, a compliance officer or team is responsible for tracking compliance, updating documentation, and reporting to executive management, right? It doesn't matter what we do. As I said, we're going to be managing organization risks. Literally everything we do is just taking proactive approach by managing organization risks to prevent, incident from occurring. Again, and what are some of the best practice? For example, we'll talk about performance metrics. We already know metrics that, a lot of tools have their dashboards, statistical data that you can see in real time. And if you have to present or take it to management, then this suffice. And that's why they say that develop performance metrics to monitor the effectiveness of security initiative and controls, right? But what are the things that you need to measure? For example, you have network security controls, you have IDS, IPS systems. These are things that we covered on our networking playlist. So if you're still behind, lacking on that networking playlist, now I'll advise you to make sure you go and watch it. Remember, also talk about change detection mechanism as well as access controls. Say, for example, regularly monitor intrusion or detection system, IDS, IPS, to ensure they are identifying as well as responding to threats. The fact that you have already like enable or have those doesn't mean that you're just going to keep them like that. And that's why we said that first and foremost, common is a big thing because you're going to be doing. If not, if something happened and they get into your environment, then that's another story. Of course, we're not going to be talking about BUA, right? Or BAU, right? So what of talking about logging data or reviewing log data? You also want to regularly review log data to identify trends or behavior that might not be visible during routine monitoring. Analyze firewall logs to detect unusual access patterns or failed login attempts that could indicate security issues. And that's why, again, if you realize it, we spend time going through our networking videos because we're definitely going to come here, and we have those logs. Why are they being generated? Because you can easily investigate, you can fall back and check, see if there's a pattern that change, if there's a spike or something, that will help you analyze it better and be proactive, use more preventive measures, right? But what are some of the benefits? Because allows organizations to catch potential security issues before they escalate. You see the reason? So that's great, right? What of, ensuring prompt response to security controls failures? Tell me as of now, realize why are we assessing controls? Because there are times where you have controls that they are not operational. And don't get it twisted, because even awareness training, that's a control family. Are we even doing that? Are user even carry out or taking the assessment training, the annual training, or the refreshment course? Or what of the incident response? We cannot just have an incident response plan and we say we are doing a tabletop or simulation, but we are not actually doing that. Control is not, we cannot say it's fully implemented, because in a situation where an actual incident occurs, then we are like, it's crazy, right? And that's why, organization need to be able to take prompt action in a situation where, a control is not working. For example, address any security breaches that occur during the failure, but if this is something that happens, say incident response, we are not following what we're supposed to do, that incident occur, we don't even know when, how we intend to recover from that, right? And that's why if you look here, they said if anti-malware solution fails, restore the system, investigate the cause, fix it, and enhance monitoring to ensure it doesn't happen again, right? And also, what of reviewing changes for security risks? That was important. Each time those changes occur, it's very important for it to be reviewed. For example, prior to implementing changes, conduct risk assessment to determine if they impact PCI DSS. It's very important before you make any change, because new change will definitely come with new vulnerabilities or new risk factor. And that's why risk assessment, you see this word risk assessment, as I said, you still perform risk assessment to be able to identify the risks. And once you do the risk assessment, that will determine the kind of controls that can go into your system to minimize any potential or future risks that you all might encounter or expose, right? And for example, it says that a new network connection might bring previously out of scope system. Remember, scope has been a big thing since we started the schools, right? And if a new system is added, review it for compliance with PCI DSS. But what are the steps to take? First, you want to perform a risk assessment. You want to identify applicable PCI DSS requirements. You want to also implement the necessary security controls, as well as update your documentation to reflect, the changes, right? What of organization change as well as external connections? We also want to regularly review the impact of organization changes like measure and appreciation, very important, and to make sure they are in scope, because the truth is that a merger can definitely introduce new systems that also need to be assessed, to make sure they're in compliance with PCI DSS, so as to avoid any potential security risks that they might bring into our system. And also, what happened to your external connection, like your third-party vendor risks, that we've covered in depth. And we said that we also need to ensure that they are continuously being monitored, and they also need to be in compliance with PCI DSS. I hope you all are enjoying the course, because again, it's very, very interesting, right? Everything, that's why I say it doesn't matter what you do, which framework you work with. Again, we are talking about risk management. We are talking of policy development. We are talking of reviewing and updating those policies. We are talking of implementing controls and assessing those controls. We are talking of you leading a remediation effort within your organization. We are talking of you defining clear classes if you have to deal with your vendors. What are those things that you can put, right? And that's why I say conduct periodic reviews to confirm that PCI DSS requirements are in place and functional. And that's why I say the reason they are hiring you because of things like this. We have to keep doing, right? Say, for example, verify that configuration standard has been applied. Remember when we went through the networking videos, when we say you are asking for a screenshot of the configuration settings, of course, maybe they enable that rules. They take a screenshot. You want to see if what we have on our policies are they fully implemented, right? What of default vendors account? You're using a tool or any new tools that can be an infrastructure or the firewall, all those things. Switches or routers, physical or software. Do we go with the default password? That's why I say we want to move. And the what of patches? That's something that we want to do timely to be able to resolve bug fixes, right? Because it's just like you have a house, you cook, you do everything, you just dumped it, and you never take the time to clean. You can imagine what will happen, right? So likewise, reviews should be scheduled periodically based on the size and complexity of the environment or user environment. Also, reviewing hardware and software technology at least once every 12 months. Do you see? We have to do that at least once every 12 months. Or to confirm vendor support PCI DSS compliance. Because if we're doing that, then of course, as I said, you don't want to onboard your vendor and you feel like, you know what, this is it. No, it doesn't work that way. So you also have to fall back on the common aspect. For example, if a software version becomes unsupported, replace it or implement a remediation plan to maintain compliance. And what are some of the benefits? We want to ensure that technology meets security need as well as PCI DSS requirement. And talking about annual review of technology and security, first, a company's security infrastructure includes an older version of an anti-malware software that are no longer supported by the vendor. Just the fact that that vendor doesn't longer support that software, think of all the different vulnerabilities and risks you guys are exposed to. It's just like someone having an iPhone 2 or 3. Currently, I don't know what version they have. I still have a 12 and they still support 12. I don't know if I want to upgrade, but I'll definitely be upgrading very soon, right? But to me, it's still functional. It's okay. And I like it, right? So just imagine having something that the vendor doesn't longer support. Then you guys have a lot of risk factor that we have thinking about. And it's stuff like that, to be in compliance with PCI DSS, organizations should always think of either replacing or upgrading to have the most current version. It might also be a database version like Oracle. I don't know their current version now, but if they no longer support that software or that particular database version, then it's important for the organization to upgrade. Or if you're tired of Oracle, you better migrate and go to or use any other database that you so choose, right? And it's very, very important, especially when it comes to having the most current option or versions. As a matter of fact, one of my projects I work for has to do with what compliance something where I was able, I forgot, do they call it system currency? Yeah, the word system currency. This is exactly what we are talking about. I was have to go through all the different like systems set with the organization to check the versions, identify those that were approaching their end of life cycle and those that have already been obsolete. And it's good to keep doing stuff like that because you have an inventory that will also help the organization prepare their budgets if they want to replace or they want to upgrade, right? Then, talking of communication, new threats and organization changes, also establish clear communication channel for all internal and external parties regarding new threats or changes that might, of course, impact PCI DSS. Say if a new vulnerability is discovered in a widely used technology, communication to all stakeholders about the risks, the mitigation step as well as escalation procedure, which is very important. And I said you're also going to be working a lot with different stakeholders. But what was a takeaway on business as usual? Ensures they are also in compliance with PCI DSS and CONMON is effective, which involve regular reviews, monitoring, also taking immediate response and step to respond to any item that might not be working. Develop a culture of ongoing vigilance to ensure that PCI DSS is always effective and up to date. And then regularly implement best practices to ensure that your organization security compliance posture remains strong regardless of the complexity or size of your organization. Then we will go about sampling and I will see you all in the next video. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends, okay? Thank you.